It's Monday, January 30th, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show for you today. We're going to learn about how the JFK Museum in Hyannis is inspiring some young high school students. We're going to find out about the latest in the effort to improve the Cape's aging bridges. And we're going to chat with Cape Cod Community College spokesperson Michael Gross about a program that allows high school students to get a jump on college credits on this episode of Barnstable Today. Now let's take a look at today's top headlines. Barnstable police say a Hyannis Port home owned by the Shriver family was used by drug dealers to traffic fentanyl. Police arrested 3 individuals in connection with that alleged drug ring. We will learn more about that episode when we chat with Police Chief Paul McDonald on tomorrow's show. Police are warning residents of a phone scam. Scammers are calling residents and asking questions like, "Can you hear me?" The typical response is yes. That response is then recorded and used as authorization to charge the individual's credit card. Police are reminding residents to stay vigilant on the phone, not give out any personal information, and if you receive a call like the one described, officials urge you to hang up right away. Will septic systems in Barnstable affect pond water quality? That's the issue the Conservation Commission will be discussing at its meeting this week. Mark Nelson with the Horsley Witten Group will share draft regulations that have been developed for other Cape towns that were designed to protect ponds. The Board of Health meets Tuesday, January 31st at 3 in the Town Hall hearing room. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation begins roadway improvements for the Route 28 intersection at Burses Way. That begins today. Starting today, the eastbound lane of Route 28 will be detoured at the intersection of Route 28 and Burses Way. Traffic will be directed onto Burses Way, then directed northeast up Walton Avenue. The end of the detour will occur as traffic migrates back to Route 28. Traffic to local businesses will be allowed access. Traffic during construction operations will be delayed, and motorists are advised to seek alternate routes and to avoid that construction area. The work hours will be between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. And as always, please slow down and use extreme caution when traveling through road construction areas and detour routes. Up next, we're going to chat with JFK Museum Director John Allen. We're here at the JFK Museum in Hyannis with Executive Director John Allen. John, very excited to talk about a partnership that you guys have made with Barnstable High School art students. Tell me a little bit about this collaboration.
Well, you know, with this year being the 100th birthday of President Kennedy, one of the items that's important to us is that we find those opportunities to bring that story to the younger members of our community. And some of those are educational. In this case, it's the use of art to capture what they, in their own way, they came to the museum, the students, connected with them, that brings in the association of either legacy of President Kennedy on public service and certainly leadership, and or just talking about a subject that was of great interest to them that would tie into the association.
Any feedback from the kids after the tour? What did they find most interesting, or maybe what did they not know about before coming to the museum?
Well, you know, it was an interesting journey. We had a meeting here at the museum, and we brought the head of the art department and a couple of our directors who were educators. And we just basically took them around the museum and looked at some of the exhibits that are here, but then we said we have different themes of items and artifacts and images of other aspects of President Kennedy and the family. And you can go through those as you want. So they basically, I guess to answer your question, they did it on their own. They got together in groups, they looked at some collaboration in some of the pieces. And they worked with their instructor, but it was very independent. And they weren't told any parameter. They were open on the type of medium that they would use. They were open on how they would convey it. And there was no guidance or kind of, ground rules that we would look for, just that it would convey something that was important to them in their association with President Kennedy. And that would tie well into an exhibit at the high school.
I cannot wait to see the exhibit at the high school. It's coming out Tuesday, February 7th, is the opening of the exhibit at the high school. I'm very excited to see what the students took away from their time here at the museum and what President Kennedy means to them.
I know. Well, this is what's unique about it, and I'll come back to the exhibit. What's unique is that we are living through a very interesting presidential change. And with the inauguration this past Friday, there is no doubt that the younger generation have gotten engaged with this election in the range of what it was and what it wasn't. And more importantly, the dynamics of what has gone on and that has probably a lot of people talking about the election, but what it really is talking to us is, and I think it came through with the students, is that they're more engaged on the subject of a president, because it was quite active, to be an understated word. But more importantly, that I feel it provoked their own need to have a point of view. They had to somehow get involved. I think that's great. What I hoped through this, and they're going at their exhibit, is what resonated around the artifact or image that they had. What did they see, and what are they trying to message in that? Is it public service? Is it some of the history? Is it being on Cape Cod? Is it the family? And more importantly, how they present it, because there's going to be some good mixture of the way they put their art objects together. So we're happy about it, one, because it is a great way of connecting the younger generation with our museum, connecting them with the legacy of President Kennedy and some of what he represented. But also, I feel to give them some sort of a self-learning that might prompt them to maybe do something on their own, whether it's the study of more history, or whether it's to maybe get involved. One of the items that I feel is important, and the museum tying into this exhibit, is to see the voice and to ask for their voice in what is going on in our museum, and how does it resonate. It'll give us some good guidance.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing so much with us about this exhibit. Very excited to attend again Tuesday, February 7th at Barnstable High School. I believe, is it 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock, 5 to 7. And what's going to be great, if I can just take another minute, with this being his 100th birthday, and his actual birthday will be Memorial Day, May 29th, the night of May 28th will be a concert in a collaboration with the Cape Cod Symphony Orchestra there at the Performing Arts Center at the high school. And we anticipate a full house. We've already sold, I think, about 450 tickets of 1,400 are already out. And that exhibit will be there. So when their guests are coming in, that exhibit will be right in the lobby as they come in to go to the arts theater, and then there'll be a little congregation after that. So it's going to get some good play, and we're happy on that.
Wonderful. Love to see local museums working with students to help encourage learning and taking it into their own hands. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, Sarah.
Of course, our guest today, Executive Director of the JFK Hyannis Museum, John Allen. Now we'll find out the latest in the effort to improve the Cape's aging bridges with Cape Cod Commission Technical Services Director Glenn Cannon. It is almost roadwork season, really, if we think about it, Glenn. Coming up on the spring, thinking about a lot of transportation projects. With me to discuss some of those, Technical Services Director for the Cape Cod Commission, Glenn Cannon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Want to get an update, if we can, on there's been a lot of discussion. A meeting was held not too long ago about the Canal Area Transportation Project. Where do we stand on that project?
Sure. With the Canal Area Transportation Study, a project that MassDOT has undertaken, I would say a big development in that project right now. If before they had talked about a P3, a public-private partnership, and really talking about a new bridge with tolls, and that was a big item on it. A third highway bridge over the canal with tolls. They really seem to have backed off of that, and that right now is not officially on the table. Doesn't mean they might revisit it later on, but they really backed off of that. And they've also now brought in the Army Corps of Engineers, which is a big development. So the two highway bridges and the railroad bridge are owned and maintained by the highway department. I mean, by Army Corps of Engineers. So MassDOT is now really looking for the Army Corps of Engineers to step forward and take care of their own bridges and start looking at replacement. So this is a big development. You know, it does slow down the time frame. I'll tell you that much. The P3 project could have been on a much faster time frame. But in reality, I think at the end of the day, it's the right way to go about it, because even if you built a new bridge, and this really kind of never made any sense to me, if you built a brand new bridge, you're building a brand new bridge next to an 80-year-old bridge. You know, you're almost like putting a Band-Aid on the problem. That 80-year-old bridge has to be addressed. And if they were going to build a third bridge, they would still have either the Sagamore or the Bourne standalone, bridge without any help. So they had to be addressed. Now the Army Corps has a different process. You're talking about significant money. We just had a meeting at our Joint Transportation Committee. That's the committee of 15 DPW directors from Cape Cod talking about transportation. The Army Corps of Engineers was there. They talked about $400 million per bridge. Now,
wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're really talking about numbers that are way out there. Quite honestly, right. If that went to $1 billion to replace two bridges, $500 million each, I wouldn't blink an eye. I always think this is something we have to talk about in transportation. It's the cost of infrastructure.
Well,
it's astronomical.
I think the tricky part, too, is that there aren't necessarily the funds available
Correct.
for these really costly projects. So if you're saying the Army Corps of Engineers is now being sort of pressured to upgrade the bridges or maintain them in a better way, that's going to be really costly for them. How is that going to shake out?
Correct. Right now they have a separate study going on, a major rehabilitation study, just to look at the bridges right now. And what they're doing is a total financial assessment of what those bridges really cost. Not just the maintenance work that they're putting into them, and we know this maintenance work is happening more and more frequently all the time now, but also the impact on the residents. Because when they close down one of those lanes, it has an impact on everybody on Cape Cod. From the business owners who our deliveries aren't coming, their customers aren't coming, to people who have medical appointments. And I hear it all the way out to P-Town. There are people who are getting in their car and normally driving to Boston who are thinking to themselves, okay, it's a 3-hour car ride, right? I have to leave 3 hours before my appointment. Now it's a 5-hour car ride. They are now missing their medical appointments because of that work. So they're taking all that into consideration. And then based on that study, and that's a very important step, that study actually comes out in June. They will make the determination on what they're going to do next. Do they start pursuing bridge replacement, or are they going to maintain those bridges until the next round of, who knows, 20 years, 30 years, when they make a determination that it's costing them more money now. So that's a big study that comes out in June, and we'll have to see where that determination comes to. And then even that, if they do talk about bridge replacement, what this gentleman said is now they have to go back, they're talking about going back to Congress for authorization for that funding. There's no line item amount that they have for new bridges in their budget. I believe he said the Army Corps of Engineers nationwide has a $5 billion budget for everything that they do. So, to take $1 billion out of that, 20% of their budget for two bridges on Cape Cod, as important as they are to us, it just is not within their yearly annual budget. So they'd have to go back to Congress, look for that funding for those two big bridge replacements. So that is the biggest news. I would say also that MassDOT is still working on the 4 connections and then the roads in between. That project is still moving forward, so it's moving forward separately. Talking about replacing the Bourne Rotary, Exit 1 off of Route 6, a relocation of that, talking about that. Fixing Belmont Circle, which is on the mainland side of the Bourne Bridge. And really, if you will, Sagamore Rotary Replacement Project, that one still is in good shape. No major changes over there. Also talking about upgrading like Scenic Highway and then Sandwich Road. So still significant projects going on here. I can tell you, replacing the Bourne Rotary, one of the reasons why rotaries don't get replaced as often as they should, because you're probably talking $50 million just to replace one rotary.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just astronomical. You know, if you look
And
at this,
that's a state project then as well,
Correct.
because that's a local project here versus looking at the federal government for funding. So even more tough, I would think, to get funding for that kind of costly project.
it will be tough. There'll be a battle to replace that. So you know that's one thing we really have to look at. I think maybe a couple of projects that are a little bit lower cost that you might actually see. You know, that Exit 1 relocation. It has, I think, more impact on the residents down in the Sagamore area there. But
That is an interesting off point. You kind of have to drive through neighborhoods to,
Yes.
to get to the road that you need to go to the store. So
Right.
it's an interesting offshoot there.
it is, and I think I think that would probably move forward as a separate project. They really have to step into that neighborhood. One thing that's happened also, now there's a little bit more of a business community down there that's kind of feeding off the highway traffic. So to take all that highway traffic away, now you're really impacting them. So there has to be more study of that area, but that's something that could move forward. They're also talking about a ramp that goes from Scenic Highway, which is on the mainland side, up to the Bourne Bridge, and going straight onto Route 25. So you don't go through that Belmont Circle. It makes a lot of sense. It removes a lot of traffic from that Belmont Circle. It also is, in the transportation world, maybe a cheaper fix. And I mean, $10 million. So it could very well be something that you do see move forward coming out of this study that happens before applied bridge replacements and to relieve some of the pressure. So, that's one of the things. You have to try to relieve as much pressure and maximize the capacity of those bridges as much as possible. So those 3 projects really would do that. They'd maximize the capacity of the bridges. Doesn't make the bridges better. Certainly doesn't make them any better for pedestrians or bicyclists. But it will help relieve some traffic.
The vehicle traffic.
Exactly.
Well, I'm really interested. I cannot wait to see what the study the Army Corps of Engineers releases in June. We'll really look forward to seeing that. Thank you for coming in and telling us all about a lot of these projects and how they're planning on dealing with some of our congestion issues near our bridges. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Our guest today, Cape Cod Commission Technical Services Director Glenn Cannon. So much more to come on Barnstable Today.
Done is you actually take the college courses and they count for high school. So that's kind of the interesting flip on this entire process.
So it's like a dual enrollment kind of thing.
It is, and there are a couple of different ways to do it. The President Cox was testifying this past week before the boards of higher education, in which the joint board for elementary and high school education met with the higher ed, the college board of directors for the state. And what's interesting is they were all talking about a real push that's coming for what's called early college. And what that means, and in fact, we've been doing it since 2014, and that is in early college, students actually enroll full-time at Cape Cod Community College while still listed and still involved in all of their high school activities. And all of the college courses they take here count as their high school courses, and by the time they're done, in generally 2 years, you're talking about a 16-year-old, so generally this is something that starts the junior year in high school. They graduate on time, regular schedule with their high school graduation. And when they do, they have an associate's degree as well as the high school diploma. They're already 2 years ahead of college.
Talk about getting a head start and saving some big bucks here. This type of program is amazing for students. It can make them, I think, even more prepared as they enter college. So let's talk about how this specifically works. I know you've had a partnership with Bourne High School that's worked very well. Do you see that this program may go to other high schools as well?
And in fact, President Cox has been talking to some other high schools. The next may be Barnstable. They're involved right now working to become even closer and connected to us. The other way that it does work as well is we also have students who maintain their routine high school, but they take college courses to supplement what they're doing at high school. You know, in a high school, you can take an advanced placement course, a so-called AP course. It's more rigorous, there's more study, and it's noted on your transcript. But it's still a high school course. You can take a college course instead, get both high school and college credit for it, and you're already building a college transcript. You figure the student who graduates at early college is going to save, but the one who's done it for 2 years solid is going to save $40,000-$50,000 on their high school, on their college work, because they're already 2 years ahead. The student who takes courses in a dual enrollment process, both in high school and college, is going to save thousands of dollars because those are courses they won't take once they go on to high school. It's really the way the world is going. There are a number of places around the country in which high schools and community colleges are all almost blended together entirely. This is really exciting, and the state's pushing it hard.
I have to say that excites me a lot because I've been watching the program in Bourne, very interested in that for my kids. I think to talk about, you know, so many people are coming out of school just saddled with so much student loan debt. So finding a way to really make use of our community college, really try and keep that debt down for students is a huge bonus as they start out their life after college.
You know, without a doubt, the state's doing an awful lot. A lot of news recently about the Commonwealth commitment in which you come into us and get into a pathway into a 4-year state school. And each year, not only do you get a discount, but we give you a rebate of 10% of your tuition coming back to you at the end of the semester, all the way through your bachelor's degree. You're going to save easily $7,000 to $12,000 or more on the bachelor's degree, and with that, you're probably going to get an entire bachelor's degree for somewhere around $28,000 to $30,000. That's one semester's tuition at some of the private schools. That's incredible. So that you're literally going to get a world-class education at an incredible discount through these efforts. And the state's working hard. They want people to start at the community college because there's all kinds of evidence that the kind of foundation you get here, the study skills, the advising, the counseling, the preparation that you do here is as good, or quite frankly, in many cases, better than you would get in a massive 4-year school with a huge population. And you know, and the difference is astonishing.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Michael, because for when I studied in Ohio, I went to a traditional state college in Ohio, moved halfway through my education, so I went for a small period of time to a local community college in Columbus. And I was so in a hurry to get back to that Ohio State University, get to the big college, that when I got there, I realized, you know, actually I wish I would have stayed longer in the community college. The class sizes were smaller, you had more attention, one-on-one work with your professors, parking was easier. So, you know, really, it's not just about the finances. Sometimes you actually get a really great, a better education, if you will, when you have that personalized interaction with your professor and students in your class.
An example that I use all the time is that a student in the first 2 years of a 4-year school is going to take just about what you're going to take here. Basic English, basic math, getting prepared, your social science courses, your good foundation. Are you going to take that in a lecture hall of 300 students, or are you going to take it with a Fulbright scholar? And quite frankly, on my campus with Dr. Michael Olenzinski, you can take that with a Fulbright scholar teaching you in your class of 20 to 30 students, not a lecture hall of 300 at some massive place. I mean, it's just such a different environment to get the kind of experience that's here. There's all kinds of research that does show our students routinely do better than the so-called natural or native student who goes in as a freshman at the four-year school. The other thing that people don't know is there are a number of scholarships that are only for transfer students. The seven sister colleges, Mount Holyoke, Smith, all of those have a Francis Perkins program that is only given to transfer students. And we routinely have students here getting full boat ride scholarships at the seven sister schools by starting here.
Wow.
So there's so many advantages here that the public, I suspect, just overlooks because we're just a local college.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you for telling us all about it. I'm definitely going to keep this in mind. I have an seventh grader and a sophomore, so definitely going to keep this in mind as mine grow up and continue on in their education.
I guess my only thing to say is come visit us, come take a look for yourself. That's probably the most important part. Good to talk to you.
Will do. You too. Look forward to chatting again next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Our guest, of course, Cape Cod Community College spokesperson Michael Gross. Now, let's find out what's happening around town in today's community calendar. Well, parents will want to mark their calendars. The Barnstable Recreation Division has announced that leisure program registration for residents will begin March 21st. The leisure program is for kids in grades 1 to 8 and costs $850 for the summer. You can register for the program online or in person at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. Well, do you need another way to de-stress? The Hyannis Public Library is offering a free Coloring for Adults class every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. You can join like-minded artists. Coloring pages and pencils are provided. There is no need to sign up. Everybody is welcome to attend. Now here's a look at this week's board, committee, and commission meetings. Well, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with another great show for you. We'll chat with Tom McKean about possible changes to lifeguard regulations in the town of Barnstable. We'll talk with Chief of Police Paul McDonald, and we'll chat with DPW Director Dan Santos. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.